So I want to welcome everybody to tonight's workshop. I want to welcome everybody to tonight's workshop. We're going to get started in about 10 minutes. I'm going to give people an opportunity to join us. This workshop is going to be unlike any workshop you ever attended, related to how to start a nonprofit, how to operate it, and how to fund it. I've had people to take my class that took these classes at universities. And when they compared it to my class, there was no comparison. Basically, because what I did was to look at what everybody was doing, from university to other people that were teaching classes like this, and then to create the perfect class. So what you are looking at tonight and what we're going to be talking about real soon is what has come out of about 20 years of actually doing this type of workshop. Again, let me see what time it is. It's 6:36. We're going to get started at about 6:40 to 6:45. So anybody want to jump in and tell me, how did you hear about this class? Okay, you can unmute yourself if you want to. Let's start some conversation before the class gets started. Anybody like to jump in and say, how did you hear about the class tonight?
Hi, my name is Rosie.
Okay, go ahead.
My name is Rosangela Red, and I was on one of your previous classes with the CRA in Clearwater with Gloria Campbell and Marilyn Turman. And so I went on to that Facebook page because I'm a part of that CRA, and I was able to locate the class that way.
Oh, you're gonna love this. This is my profit business, Center for Nonprofit and Community Development. And as she mentioned earlier, I also work out of West Tampa and in terms of the CRA and putting together a strategy that transforms communities. This particular workshop goes towards nonprofits that are either operating and have started or want to get started, but more importantly, where do they get the money to get started? So thank you. You attended one of my workshops. So I think you will enjoy this workshop. They tend to be very informative. Anybody else want to jump in?
I also saw your event posted on Facebook, and I've attended one of your seminars in the past, and it was excellent. So thank you for having me tonight.
Excellent. People are returning back. I like that. Anybody else? And we're going to be getting started in about 2 minutes. And I guarantee you're going to leave this workshop with like, wow. Because there is so much information that you should come to the table with when you start a nonprofit. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't share this with you until you've gotten started. And you're falling and you're getting up and you're falling and you're getting up. So what we've done is to design a workshop that builds capacity for nonprofits. So, I'm gonna go ahead and get started now. And then as people come in, they come in. All right, so again, my name is Michael Randolph, and I'm with the Center for Nonprofit and Community Development. Our mission is to strengthen organizations that strengthen communities. So here's a list of the different services that we provide. If you notice, we provide a holistic or one-stop center when it comes to nonprofit development. Anywhere from grant writing, proposal writing, project development, government procurement, organizational development, all the way down to actually community building and engagement and all those things in between. I started this probably 30, 40 years ago in terms of making an impact and changing the world. I started this nonprofit because I wanted to leave this world and make a dent, make something that people can say he or she left something back. As you can see, I've been doing this for quite a minute now, and I love what I did. So this is more information. I started the nonprofit in 2011. Believe it or not, I started the nonprofit because I had lost my job. Y'all remember when the bubble bust? I could have taken that particular bad situation and used it to be depressed, but instead I said, hey, it's an opportunity for me to start my own business, and I haven't looked back since. So this focus on what we do. Right now, we're in 10 different states that we provide assistance in nonprofit development. These are the 10 states that we're in. We started nonprofits or work with nonprofits to get started in all 10 of these states. Here's some of the accomplishments that we've been able to do. To date, we've gotten over $75 million in grants to nonprofits. Keep in mind, I've been doing this for over like 40 years. Also keep in mind that if you follow us, and I hope you do, on LinkedIn, you'll see we've gotten over 10,000 recommendations from folks that have taken one or more of our classes. Here's some more information about me. I'm going to go through this because I want to get to the meat of the class and why you're here tonight. The first part of the class is going to talk about the 501c3 and what is it. What are your learning objectives for the night? Well, when you leave class tonight, you should know what is a nonprofit, what are bylaws, what's a purpose statement, what are articles of incorporation, what's a conflict of interest policy, solicitation requirement, 1023 application, your state exemption, your employment identification, and then you should start thinking about it after we finish. If you haven't already started a nonprofit, whether or not you want to start a nonprofit. The next lesson is going to be where the money is. So what is a nonprofit? A nonprofit is a tax-exempt organization that serves a public interest. There are many types of nonprofits, anywhere from a nonprofit C1 on up to a nonprofit C29. The best type of nonprofit is a 501c3. When you start a nonprofit, the first thing you should think about is, why are we doing what we do? What is our purpose? What difference do we want to make? For example, the mother that lost her child in the streets to violence. Her purpose becomes making sure that no other child lose their life to senseless violence. One of the first documents that you want to put together are your bylaws. What the bylaws do is to create the laws to your organization. How often do you meet? What the role of the chairperson is, what is the role of the treasury and all those other entities. Your bylaws set the laws for your organization. Your articles of incorporation is your legal document that's filed with the state to incorporate. In order to become a legal entity, you must incorporate in the state to which you live in. and it's called Articles of Incorporation. Another thing that you want to take in consideration in starting a nonprofit is what's called a conflict of interest. A conflict of interest comes into play if a board member other than the CEO is getting some kind of monetary compensation or value for serving on your board of directors. As a 501c3, board members should serve voluntarily on your nonprofit because they want to make a difference, and your organization is one of the ways that they can make a difference. The only person that should be paid on a nonprofit is incorporate on the board of directors is the CEO, because the CEO who serves on the board of directors also is responsible for the day-to-day operation. Now, if you were in a for-profit type of situation, you actually could pay your board members. So everybody knows you have to get your EIN number. You go online, and you do this online to get your EIN number to actually establish your corporation. Once that's get done, you got your application back from the state to approve you as a nonprofit. Your next step is to complete what's known as the 1023. The 1023 is the form that you complete in order to get status as a 501c3. After you receive your federal exemption, now you want to go and get exemption on the state level. If you're in the state of Florida, that will be the DR5, and you file this with the Department of Revenue. But if you're from any place else, then we normally have people that participate in our workshops from all over the country. In fact, sometimes we have people from out of the country. So for those that are in the United States, this thing right here allows you to be exempt from paying sales taxes on the state level. In every state, you have to file what's known as a solicitation. The solicitation gives you a license in order to operate a nonprofit. For some reason, I'm getting feedback. Can somebody cut off the mic, please? Okay, thank you. So where was that? So you have to follow this in every state because you have to be licensed to be a nonprofit in that state. Simply because you have your 501c3 status doesn't mean that you can operate in that state. You have to file with what's known in Florida, it's called a 10100. You have to file this because the state have to regulate your organization. Now you can do so can hold you, and not only can it be a penalty, but I think also you can get criminally charged with doing anything in the state of Florida, or any other state, without getting a license to operate in that state. Now, let's talk about the grant. Before we go to the grant, any questions related to how to start a nonprofit? Everybody good?
And I know you actually covered this for me in our last seminar I joined you for, but could you tell me up until this point what fees are associated with those forms? Like
I
where
certainly can. Thank you. Good observation, because it's all about, hey, how much does it cost? So for the state of Florida, when you buy your articles of incorporation, the fee is $71. Now keep in mind, every state the fee varies. Now, if you file for your 501c3 status, that's a 1023, the fee is, if you file for the streamline, it's $275. And normally the streamline is when you're saying, and just getting started and say, no, I don't know if we're going to make over $50,000. So right now we project that our top money, well, at least our first 3 years is going to be $50,000. Now, for some reason, you got more money, like somebody got money in the bank, and it's like 100,000, 200,000, then you're going to file what's known as a 1023 form online, and that's going to be $800. Any other questions related to that? Good. Let's rock and let's roll. Now, what are your learning objectives for this part of the class? First, when you leave class, This section right here, you should be able to describe the different types of grants, different types of grantors. You should be able to identify the tools you need to research the necessary funders. You should be able to know the fundamental about the grant, the proposal process, a concept paper, and you should really start to think about your next steps. So let's start with types of grants. The first type of grant is what's known as an unrestricted grant. And basically, an unrestricted grant will provide general support to your organization. Most grants are what we call restricted grants, meaning that you have to use the money in a specific way. The first type of specific grant is what's known as a program or project grant. So let's say you got $100,000 to work with at-risk youth. You can only work with at-risk youth under this type of restricted grant. The next type of restricted grant is what's known as seed money. Seed money is when you're just getting started as a nonprofit and you want to bring on that first person on board, and that first person should be your CEO president or your CEO, because that person now is responsible for going after money. You're saying basically to the organization that we want to get money for the first 18 months, for example, in order for our CEO to be in a position to do what they need to bring us up to capacity. Another type of grant is what's known as a capital grant. And a capital grant is in it whenever you want to buy a piece of land or buy a building. For example, if you're doing affordable housing, or if you're doing transitional housing, anything like that in which it's dealing with land or in land acquisition. Also, when you're buying big pieces of equipment. The other type is called an endowment. An endowment, I put it in, but normally an endowment is with a college or a university would normally get someone died and they leave money back. The next type is what's called a challenge grant. Sometimes when you go for a grant for $100,000, that person might say, I'll give you $90,000, but now you have to go and get $10,000 for someone else. That's not a problem. We're going to show you where the money is later on. You can also have what's known as in-kind support. In-kind support is important because it shows that people give you something for free. In-kind support might be, look, I'm an accountant and I'll do your books for the first year for free because you're a nonprofit, or a lawyer. I'm a lawyer and I do all your legal work for free. That's what in-kind means. Or, hey, look, I want to volunteer for your organization and help you. That's what in-kind support is. Now, let's talk about the grantors, the moolah, the money, to get paid, what I call it. There's a couple types of sources of grants. You got your individual, like you and I, most money come that way. For example, Girl Scout cookies, those are, you pay for individuals. Any money, or for example, those of you that's part of the faith community, like myself, if you go to a church, for example, you give your tithes up. Those are called donations from individuals. The other type of donation is what's called family and community foundation. Family foundation is like the Obama Foundation, the Clinton Foundation, Bill Gates Foundation. Community foundation is another source of funding. Community foundation give money in a geographic area, like the Hillsborough County Children's Board. And if you are in Tampa or in Hillsborough County, keep in mind, this organization gives out $41 million a year, but it's only specific to the particular area. That's why they call community foundation. And then you have corporate foundation. Now, what you don't know, corporate foundation by law must give up to 5% of their net proceeds to a nonprofit in order to maintain their status as a corporation. Then you have federated funds like the United Way, and finally you have what's known as government funds. Hey, this is what's important. When you go for a grant, look at the advantages and the disadvantages of going for a grant. Don't go for a grant simply because money is out there. Okay, Now, let's talk about where is the money and who's giving money. As you can see, the majority of people I talk about was individuals that give money. And then you got corporations, you got foundation, and then you got, again, now this is not taking in consideration government money. This is only private money we're talking about now under this particular chart that you're looking at. And then you have people, again, that give back because they want to give to a university or something like that. As you can see, a good percent of money, $15 billion, $41 billion is going towards foundation and corporation. That's a lot of money when you look at your dollar bill that these organizations bring to the table. As a matter of fact, that's over 10,000 foundations and corporations that give money every year. Over 10,000. Question: how can you find them? You're in the right place. If you're going to go for money, these are two strategies that you can use. The first is called the Foundation Center. The Foundation Center lists over 100,000 foundations and corporations. So when you go to that site, you put in, for example, I want money to help at-risk youth. And you put in, I live in the Tampa Bay area, and then you put in an amount. And they will give you everybody that's giving money for that particular purpose in that particular area. So that's a good source of finding out where the money is. The other place you can go to, especially if you are going for a federal grant, you can go to what's known as grant.gov. Now, let's talk about actually how do you get that money. There are 4 ways to be competitive in writing the grant. I'm going to say it again. A lot of things you learn tonight, you don't learn, even if you're taking a college or university course. And here's the 4 ways you make sure that you're able to get that grant. First, make sure you read your grant and the guidelines. A lot of people start reading the grant, writing the grant before they read the guidelines. If, for example, the proposal is for youth development, they start writing the proposal before they read the guidelines to see what the funder is looking for. Second, talk to a person that agreed to receive that grant last year. So if you're going for a grant with Bank of America, go to that site and find out who received money last year and talk to that person. More likely, because they're a nonprofit like you, and it's not competitive because they can't go for that money, they will share you some ins and outs on what you need to do and what you shouldn't do. The other thing, go back to that site if it's Bank of America and find out who was the group that gave the award for that grant. And find out, hit them up, it's public information. What should I not do when I submit the grant to y'all? And then finally, talk to the program officer. You can talk to the program officer whenever a grant comes out or contact person. They have a number that you can call. You increase your chances if you call that person and give that person where you're going at with your proposal. You know, look, I'm going for this proposal. Here's my idea. Can you tell me if I'm in the ballpark? Trust me, that's called insider information for free. Now, the first part of the grant, you start with the problem. You start with a statement of the problem. If there's no problem, there's no money. So how do we start with a statement of the problem? Keep in mind, a statement of the problem is also a need statement. When we start with a statement of the problem, we begin to talk about what is the specific thing that we want to change. If we are doing a grant for teenage pregnancy, we have to be able to show how many are getting pregnant, what the research shows why they are getting pregnant, and also you need to show what your program does to change that. That's all in part of a statement of the problem. Of course, it's more than that, but those are the key components and elements of a statement of the problem. There are 2 key research tools that you can use in order to get the research normally the research necessary to make a statement of the following. The first is called quantitative research. And quantitative research, when you go to get research from authoritative services or authoritative sources. For example, if you are going to write a grant on teenage pregnancy, well, you're going to universities and other people that did research on it to show that the information that you're going for is information that's credible. So you have to do your quantitative research. Also, part of quantitative research also has to do with making sure you can show the numbers of who is affected by what's going on. The second part of the research is called qualitative research. And qualitative research is when you start to get information by the individual himself that's being affected. If you're doing teenage pregnancy, for example, you can do a focus group and you can have teenagers come and get insight from them as to, hey, if you are pregnant, why did you get pregnant? If you're not pregnant, why didn't you? So you can do focus groups, you can do interviews, you can do surveys, you can do a number of stuff in order to gather that information. Two sources that you can use is fact finders as well as Florida Chart. But that's a ton of research that you can use in order to get the information, the data that you need. You got to support whatever you say with the real data. That's why it's got to be evidence-based and data-driven. The program. Now that you got the data and you're ready to rock and roll, now you need to talk about how do you want to solve the problem. And you solve the problem by what's known as a program or a project. And here's some example of what the model looks like when you're dealing with putting together a grant. It runs from the mission to the vision, your strategy, your tactics, your objectives, and your goal. Now, let's make some sense of this chart right here. The first piece of a grant is to put together your goals and your objectives. A goal is an end result or end outcome that you want to bring about. If you're dealing with teenage pregnancy, for example, what you want to do is to reduce the number of teen pregnancies. So that would be your goal. Your objective is the steps that you plan to take in order to bring about that. So you might say my goal that focus on teenage pregnancy, my objective is to put together a mentor group, after school program, etc., etc., etc. Okay, good. Let's keep on rocking. Let's keep on rolling. Now that you got your foundation, your concept together, your goal and your objective, now it's time to put together the grant. And we call this the method section of the program design. And putting together this section right here, this is the meat. This is when you begin to talk about how much money you need, what you need it for, what are your goals, what are your objectives, what are your timetables, how do you know what you're doing is going to work, who support what you say is going to work. All of that goes in what's called the program design or the method section. Now, if you're going to go for a grant, and the grant has to do with foundations or corporations, they require what's known as an introduction. And an introduction is basically asking, hey, give us some more information about you as an organization. What's unique about you? And why should we fund you? And how do you know if you can carry this out? What do you have in place to make sure that you can actually fulfill your request for money? The conclusion. Well, the conclusion is that section in which you get an opportunity to make your last bid or your last impression on the funding. Now, this section right here is unique in that nowhere in the grant should you get emotion. Only in the conclusion in the last paragraph. So for that mother that lost that child in the streets, This is where she would be, by the way. I'm doing this now for the money, but I lost my child. And this is what keeps me living. Something like that when you become personalized as to why you do what you do. Now, also, in terms of getting that information out is important, and these are different ways that you can do it. But what's most important if you're going for a grant, for all these different ways of getting information out to the public, you must make sure you got somewhere on your materials funded by or donated by. You must always recognize those people that give money if you're funded. Or for any donation, you always want to recognize it. Now, appearance is very the appendix is the last part of the grant. This is where you put down information, you list of board members. This is where you put down any annual reports, organizational, physical report, and letters of support. I cannot overemphasize the importance of a letter of support. So let's take, for example, that mother that lost her child to violence in the streets. Her letter of support she can get from city politicians that's told the killing, from the faith community, from the police department, from criminal justice, all these different folks that buy in to support what she's doing. It's called a letter of support. You want other people to know that, look, I'm not the only one that thinks this is a problem. So go and get those letters of support. They are critical to your organization. Okay. Now, the appearance of your proposals is also critical. If they tell you to use, for example, Time Roman 12 point, and you decide to use cursive or something like that, or some other type of font that they asked you, that they didn't say they want you to do, then you can actually lose that grant. It's also important if they ask you to list the, make a list, make sure you make a list. And if they ask you to number your pages, make sure you number your pages. Folks, I've seen grown people cry because they didn't do these little things right here that the proposal, person who's giving the money has asked to be done. Okay, so the other important component to your organization, and again, you're gonna learn stuff here that you don't learn elsewhere. You have to be able to put together a support, a reason for support. And your reason for support should talk about your organization. What's your impact? What difference do you plan to make? What are the challenges? What are your plans? How do you plan to use the support and finance that you're getting? And more importantly, this is where you have to make an argument. Why are you a good investment? You have to show the ROI, return on investment. There's two types of return on investment. The first is monetary, the amount of return. That if you put this in an organization, this is how much a monetary return that you get. And the other is what's called social return on investment. Both of those are critical, and understanding how to formulate those are critical also in making your case for support. Evaluation. Well, one of the most critical components of writing a grant is how you know what you do that you say you want to do. This is where we go to evaluation. These tools are so critical. I've seen nonprofits that fail because they didn't have the appropriate tools to make an argument. So there are different types of evaluation: goal-based, process-based, and outcome-based. Tonight, we're going to go over all three of those types of evaluation. The first type of evaluation It's what's known as a goal and objective evaluation. This is where you're making sure that the goals and objectives are the same as your activities. A lot of times, if you're a nonprofit and you've been around forever, you start to leave focus on what your goals and objectives are, and your activities are totally different than what you originally got started for. It's important that you check yourself before you correct yourself every 5 years and making sure, hey, look, are we doing what we said we was going to do? Does it match up with our action, with our words, etc.? The other type of evaluation is what's known as an outcome model. Another word for outcome model is what's known as a logic model. Keep in mind, a logic model is no more than a summary of the program that you bring them forward. It's given a summary. It talks about what it is that you're doing, how you want to do it, who you want to do it for, why you want to do it, what's the evidence you want to use in order to show you're doing it, and where can we find this evidence, and more importantly, what's the timeline? A theory of change. Again, this is one of the really heavy thinking things that most people don't teach when you're dealing with nonprofit development in terms of funding development. A theory of change is so important because you begin to tell people on the big level how you're thinking, on the micro level. There are 3 elements to a theory of change, as you can see. And we're going to talk about each one of these elements separately in order to make a theory of change. A theory of change differs from a strategic plan. A theory of change talks about the process to which you plan to pursue in order to bring about the outcome that you plan to make. As you can see, a theory of change deals with identify the community problem and the need, identify what the specific intervention is going to be, and then talk about the intended outcome. Need to emphasize intended outcome. That is that the outcome that comes about has to be as a result of you bringing it about, and not something by chance or you was doing something and something else happened. So it has to be the intended outcome. Okay, as an organizational capacity is important. You should be able to talk about the why, the who, the what, and the how you would do something. Your organizational infrastructure is critical. You should have policies and procedures, staffing, funding sustainability, physical control. You need to make sure that you can show that the money is being controlled and watched, that people know they can trust you because you got internal control to make sure that the money is being used when and how it's supposed to be used. And of course, you can do a SWOT analysis. We're going to talk about that. Now, the other thing you should do long range from a nonprofit perspective is to put together a 5-year strategic plan. A 5-year strategic plan focus on internal operation. Again, it's different from a internal operation, that is. It differs from a theory of change. So a 5-year strategy looks at, a strategic plan, looks at where do you want to be at in the next 5 years. It looks at your goal, your strategies, your objective, your tactics, your operation, your metrics, and your budget. Most funders don't require this. This is what we call a SWOT analogy. Now, this is one of those things, and I need to emphasize that as a nonprofit, you should always think like a business, even though you are a nonprofit. This is one of those things that's used on in your Fortune 500 companies. They use what's known as a SWOT analogy. they do every year to check themselves before they wreck themselves. And one of the things they do is look at, hey, what are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? What are opportunities and what are our threats? Every year, you're looking back from the last year and the new year, look at all of these. You always understand is that you're only as good as you are right now. So you're always doing this right here and now. Now, there are key components to being a nonprofit in order to operate effectively. You should know your values. That is, what do you believe? Your mission. Why do you exist? Your vision. Where are you going at? Your strategy. How will you get there? And your tactics. So this brings about your short-term, long-term, and mid-term objectives. Now, the other things that you want to have put together as you begin to grow as an organization, keep in mind there are 3 levels to a nonprofit. That is the emerging stage. This is when you're doing all your legal work, you get your 501c3 started. Then there is the intermediate stage. This is when you begin to put together your policies and your procedures, job description, and then it's the advanced stage. This is when you're actually operational. You got a place, you got employees, etc., etc., etc. So your other things that you should have in play in order to dance with the big boys and the big girls is a business plan, operational plan, financial management, a fundraising strategy, your safety and risk management strategy, your marketing and branding strategy, your partnership and collaborative piece also. Funding. How you going to get the moolah? And where is the money that you're going to bring in? The most critical thing you need to do as a nonprofit is to put yourself in a position where you are able to have sustainable funds. Not funds that every year you have to run back to a grantor and figure out whether or not you're going to be funded. So we're going to talk about what is sustainable funding. This is the model that we use. As you can see, it's a social entrepreneurship approach. So when we talk about how the money come in, that's the input. That's where we bring money in from grants/social media fundraising, fees for service, development fees, consultant fees, own and operate our own business. That's right. As a nonprofit, you want to be able to create your own business that money is coming in. For example, let's say, for example, the lady who's helping teenage pregnancy. She starts a business because what she found is that all the people that she's helping, they got good talent, they can sew, they can do all kinds of things that she can create into a business. And that way, she's bringing money into the organization. So you definitely want to be able to operate a business. If you're dealing with youth, then start an ice cream shop where the youth are actually running the shop, or a t-shirt shop. There are organizations that have actually done this before. And Tampa, the CDC of Tampa, in the past has had an ice cream shop and a, well, they have different types of funding streams that they brought in order to become sustainable. The budget, yeah. A lot of people, when we come in, they don't want to hear it, but it's important. You have to understand the budget. And if you don't, hire yourself an accountant. That's what people do, hire an accountant. So let's let me talk about the different components to putting together a budget. And if you're a nonprofit, there's software that you can actually use. QuickBooks with nonprofits. You can use that because that helps you to do really complex financial standard requirements, like putting together your income statement, putting together your cash flow, your balance, all those things. They put together all those financial statements that you need in order to show that you're a financial sound mind. A budget then consists of different components. The first is direct costs, and direct costs go to salaries, wages, consultant fees, equipment, salaries, and other things, etc. Indirect costs are those costs not directly listed in the budget, yet those are costs incurred in the space, and those are costs incurred in the project. That can be anywhere from renting out space to administrative costs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then you have what's known as cost sharing and in-kind or pro bono. I cannot overemphasize and bringing pro bono work to the table. There's free work, volunteers, because you can convert that into money when you're going for that grant. You can show, look, we have 15 people who are donating their time to work with the nonprofit. This is what they normally will be paid based on federal guidelines. And federal guidelines say you can put down $22 an hour. And you begin to multiply that. So when you're going for the grant to show what value you bring to the table. And in-kind and pro bono pieces are very important. Okay, so what should have come up this now will be the lists of all of the organizations that we work with. We provide services over 1,800 nonprofits in 10 different states. Unfortunately, this particular screen right here is tiny, you can't see it. So please don't ask me what happened with that. So this is bringing us to the end of the workshop this evening. I want to start now just to get some feedback as to what do you think of the class? And anybody can jump in.
Thank you. It was fabulous. I had a couple of notes that I had wanted to make sure I had answered, and definitely you covered that with the 5-year strategic plan and mentioning that it definitely should be run like a business. So thank you so much. I learned way more than that, but I don't want to go through all 3 pages of notes I took.
Thank you. Hey, this is what this is all about. And when people take this class right here, they say, wow. That's what they leave with, wow. Because they come with, well, here's the free. So if it's free, it's not going to be that much. And they come here and they say, wow, are you sure they're not going to make me charge when I'm trying to leave? No, this is free of charge. It's by way of our nonprofit, the Center for Nonprofit and Community Development, and we provide all type of professional technical assistance to nonprofits. Any other place who want to wave in before we leave out tonight? And this, it was not a trick or a treat. This is really a treat. It was not a trick tonight.
Mr. Randolph.
I had to throw that in there. I know. Go ahead, somebody, please.
Mr. Randolph, Rosangela Rudd again.
Hello.
Hi, wanted to talk with you a little bit about theatrical production company. I have a business that looks at the community, and in the last meeting that you offered with the CRA with Clearwater, you mentioned that particular piece of you said a theatrical production company. Actually, I was looking at a theatrical production services until you said that. And then I thought, okay, that could indeed be a for-profit LLC in opposed to a 501c3 because it could bring in a profit. So
well, you don't have to be an LLC to bring in money. You can be a nonprofit as long as the business that you're getting established is consistent with your purpose. Like the CDC of Tampa, they had, and it was a nonprofit, it wasn't an LLC, it just was under their nonprofit. They had a laundromat, they had an ice cream shop, they had a, what was that other thing there? Laundromat, and one other business they had, a t-shirt shop. And it was all ran by the youth that was bringing them money. The thing was, it was related to their purpose. So that's the way they did it and brought the money in.
Now, I was told at one point by someone that I was trying to assisting me with grant writing, that if you are the president of your 501c3, you cannot draw an income. You'd have to, well,
No, that's what I'm glad you come to this class. I mean, let me tell you something. This is really true. 90% of the stuff you hear is not true in this life. It's just simply is not true.
in
So
the whole
no,
life.
it's not. You have to be able, if you're the CEO, president of your organization, you're running the day-to-day operation of the organization. The rest of the board, they might come to a meeting every month, maybe. But see, you have to run the day-to-day operation. So IRS recognize that. As a matter of fact, if you wasn't getting paid, IRS would say, what's up with this?
Correct.
How is this person doing this and they're not getting paid? This is a business. Not a volunteer organization, it's a business. So no, that information not true.
So you're saying as a 501c3 president, I can be on the board and still be a paid employee?
I'm the president and CEO of my board and I still get paid. Are you kidding me?
It makes sense to me. That's why I came to the workshop, brother. Like,
You
come on
kidding
now.
me? I ain't doing this for free.
I know,
Nah,
right?
man.
Okay.
Got to be kidding. Anybody else that want to wave in?
I'm not quite finished. One more
Okay, go ahead.
question. The PowerPoints that you're presenting us, how do we, I mean, it's really kind of quick. I couldn't write as quickly as I would have liked to. How can I get more of the PowerPoint information that you've presented?
So because this is very complete, comprehensive PowerPoint, and we got to make money, we'll send you the PowerPoint for $5.55, $5.55.
And how, okay, so how do I
Just shoot me an email.
shoot you and your email at?
Okay, the email, listen up, folks. And you can also go back to how you sign up, but the email is Center for Nonprofit and Community at Gmail. Center for Nonprofit and Community at Gmail. Your nonprofit must constantly be looking for ways to bring in funding. You know, that's how you survive. So as a nonprofit, we use all kind of strategy to bring in streams of income. Even if we're doing something as a small piece of selling this for like $5.55, $5.55. We all know it's way more than that. But when we go to a funder and we're trying to get money, and we say, look, we're using all kind of ways to bring in money. $5 here, $10 here,
Absolutely.
10,000 here, 100,000 here. It's all part of the strategy.
Do you
People
have
want to give money to a business.
do you have a phone number that persons can reach your staff?
I sure can. The number is 813-857-7657. 813-857-7657. But it's probably best to text me or to email me. Now, here's some facts, right? And they did some research. They said, how to get the quickest response when you're trying to do business? And they say, test that person. I don't know how true this is. They say people will respond quicker to a text than an email or the phone. I don't know how true that is. But I just wanted to share that out with y'all, because I always use that strategy in order to get, when I'm trying to get a group of people together, at the same time, I definitely message them because I know they're going to get that. But anyway, I went all the way over there. You done got me in trouble. How did that happen? I'm working too hard. Look, it's Sunday. I should be doing it. But anyway, look, any other questions? Did you have any other questions that you want to be part of the mix? So is everybody good?
I'll repeat that number back, 813-837.
No. 813-857.
Thank you.
7657.
I appreciate you.
And look, I'm looking forward to working with each of you. I work with nonprofits from around the country, anywhere from your mom and pop population to celebrities, doctors, lawyers, you name it. And when I do this, because people respect you if you can bring a quality production. even a production like this free workshop right here, you normally will pay just to take this workshop, and I've seen them online, and they give you 10% of what I'm doing here. They would charge you $45, $55, something like that, in order to do that workshop.
Right.
For me, I do a different thing because I'm nonprofit. So for me, it's all about giving back. When I leave, I can't, and close my eyes, I can't take money with me. But whatever organization I was able to help to fulfill that mission, you know, I can take that with the life, the number of lives that I've been able to change because of that. And I always tell folks, nonprofit rocks. And the reason why nonprofit rocks, because people always talk about the problem, but they don't step up
Come on.
to the solution to the problem. So that's why I do what I do for nonprofit. Because they out there, they soldiers, they out there doing the do. They're not looking at TV and talking about what's wrong. They say, look, what I need to do to change this. So again, my famous words is nonprofit rocks, and y'all really do rocks. So if that's it, we can close on out, and I'm gonna thank everybody for taking part in the workshop. I'll be sending some email related to the 501c3 service as well. So you're gonna get an email as well. So you can always return your comments or anything you want to share with me at that particular point. So I'm out of here. I want to thank everybody for taking part in tonight's class. More importantly, go change somebody's life. Go and make an impact on somebody's life. Thank you.